Welcome to Beyond the Engine Room, where host Rob Peterson reveals what it truly takes to work and live in the maritime world. So this time, we're heading back to 1991 and joining a marine fitter on his way to a big job in the Far East.
Sounds interesting.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people can relate to this, that feeling when you meet up with your workmates.
Yeah.
Before a big trip.
Yeah, definitely.
That mix of nerves and excitement about the project ahead. And in this case, we've got a crew of marine fitters, welders, pipe fitters.
Okay.
All gathering at Cardiff train station for the first leg of the journey.
Right.
Gatwick Airport. We can't forget the time-honored tradition.
What's that?
A few pints at the airport bar before a long flight.
Ah, yes, of course. The pre-flight rituals, gotta love those.
Right. That.
You're leaving one world behind and stepping into another. And those shared moments with your workmates, probably help to ease that transition.
Yeah, definitely brings everyone together. And then, of course, comes the flight itself.
Right.
Hours in the air, heading towards Hong Kong.
Okay.
But here's where things get really interesting.
I'm intrigued.
Back in 91, landing in Hong Kong meant flying into Kai Tak Airport. Ever heard of it?
Oh, yeah. Kai Tak was notorious. It was
known for its incredibly challenging approach.
Yeah, incredibly challenging. The airport was built right in the heart of the city, you see.
Wow.
Surrounded by mountains and skyscrapers.
Wow.
So pilots had to use this incredibly precise visual approach.
Really?
Yeah, it was called the checkerboard approach.
Checkerboard? What's that?
They'd be weaving through those high-rises, making a series of sharp turns.
I can't even imagine.
Before a steep descent onto the runway.
Sounds nerve-wracking.
You bet.
Our marine fitter described looking out the window and seeing apartment buildings just flashing by, feeling so close he could practically touch them.
Wow.
He even mentioned seeing someone hanging laundry out to dry practically within arm's reach.
That's an image.
Isn't it? That clash of the ordinary and the extraordinary.
Yeah, it really encapsulates the unique character of Kai Tak.
And the sources describe Rob, he's stepping out of his hotel. He's in Kowloon.
Right.
And he gets to the waterfront and just sees Hong Kong Island for the first time.
Wow, what an image.
And he just talks about these, imposing skyscrapers, this incredible light show. I mean, it must have just felt like stepping into, some futuristic city.
I bet.
So from that amazing view, Rob and his colleagues, they head to the Star Ferry.
Oh, nice.
To cross Victoria Harbor.
Ah, the Star Ferry. I mean, that's an icon.
It is.
Over a century old at that point. I mean, think about how many people it's carried across that harbor.
Millions. Millions of people.
It's like it's part of the city, right? It's not just transportation. It's like it's in the fabric of Hong Kong.
It really is.
Yeah.
And, the sources say, Rob talks about, as he's going across the harbor, just the sheer variety of vessels.
Oh, wow.
Everything from, these traditional Chinese junks.
Wow.
He even mentioned some with the distinctive red sails.
Yeah.
To modern ferries, to, tiny little rowing boats, all just kind of like weaving through the water.
Wow. It's like a microcosm of Hong Kong itself.
Their first stop was the legendary Stanley Market.
Stanley Market. Now, that's a place I've heard a lot about. A real sensory overload, isn't it?
Oh, totally. And Rob, he really brings it to life in his account. Just this incredibly vibrant and lively place. Mm-hmm. He was there with his workmates before they were joining their ship.
Okay.
And it sounds like it was kind of just a really cool sensory experience.
Yeah.
Just from the way he describes it.
I can only imagine like a lot of markets in that part of the world.
Yeah.
They're just full of life, aren't they?
Totally. And he was talking about the market being absolutely teeming with people.
Wow.
And I just love all these details he gives about the colors and the smells. He was talking about like the aromas of street food mixing with incense.
Oh, wow.
And I'm thinking, wow, that sounds incredible.
Yeah. You can almost smell it, can't you?
I know, right?
Just listening to him talk about it.
It's so evocative.
Yeah.
Makes you feel like you're right there with him. So one of the things that really stuck out to me right away was that this guy, Rob, he gets on the Sea Princess.
Okay.
And literally the next day, they just set sail.
Wow. That is a quick turnaround.
I know.
I wonder, how much time did he have?
I know.
To, get his stuff situated, unpack.
Totally.
Get familiar with the ship.
Yeah. Did he even get to, see his cabin or anything before they
just took off?
They just took off.
Yeah.
But yeah, their first stop was Kota Kinabalu.
Okay.
Which is in Malaysia.
Yeah, I've heard of that.
Yeah. But unfortunately, Rob couldn't really explore much because he was on duty.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah.
You know, you got to do what you got to do,
Exactly.
especially on a ship like that.
Right.
Everyone has their jobs.
Totally.
And they got to keep things running smoothly.
Yeah.
Especially if they're on a tight schedule to get to all these different places.
Yep. So from Kota Kinabalu,
Right.
they continue on across the South China Sea.
Okay.
And they make a couple more stops
Okay.
at Kuantan and Port Keeling.
Gotcha. So are these like coastal cities or?
Yeah, they're like coastal cities.
Coastal cities. Okay, cool.
Yeah. But then this is where it gets really interesting.
Oh,
so
yeah.
apparently they almost got to see Krakatoa.
Krakatoa. Oh, wow.
Oh, I know.
That's like legendary.
I know, right?
Isn't that the one that like had this massive eruption back in
Yeah.
the 1800s?
Yeah, like 1883.
Yeah, and like
It was huge.
it changed the whole landscape of like the region
It was insane.
and like sent shockwaves around the world. I mean, I can see why he would be excited to see that even from a distance.
Totally.
That's got to be amazing.
But unfortunately,
Oh, no.
sea mist rolled in,
Oh.
and so they couldn't even see it.
Thankfully, they did get to see some amazing sights
Okay, good.
because their next stop was Bali,
Bali, nice.
which is where
Forgot-
Rob and his coworkers
Right.
managed to get like a half day off
Oh, nice.
to explore.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so they actually got to.
So they go ashore.
Yeah, they got to like
Yeah, and they ended up
experience the culture.
going to this little village
Oh, cool.
near Nusa Dua.
Nusa Dua. Okay.
Yeah, which is like on the coast of Bali.
Okay.
And they had to take the ship's tender to get there.
Oh, wow.
So they're going from this like
Yeah, so from the huge
massive ship,
like metal structure of the ship
Yeah.
to like this small little
tiny.
village.
That's quite a
It's quite a contrast.
Yeah.
Um,
But yeah, so what do they do?
so they actually got to
Bali.
do quite a bit in Bali.
Okay, cool.
Rob mentions buying souvenirs
Yeah.
and meeting some local children who
Oh,
were selling their crafts.
that's so cute.
Yeah, it's really cool.
I love that.
That human element.
And he even got to
Yeah.
like go to a local bar.
Oh, fun.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
So they got to really experience like
yeah, they got to like step off
a totally different world.
to just like
Yeah.
immerse themselves in this new culture.
Exactly.
That's so cool.
And it really makes you think about like,
Yeah.
what was it like for those children in Bali
Mm-hmm.
to encounter these
To meet these
foreigners?
foreigners from this massive ship.
Yeah.
Like, what did they think of
I
these
know.
guys coming up? But sadly, you know, all good things must come to an end.
Oh,
And it was back to work for Rob and his crew.
okay.
So they left Bali
Right.
and eventually docked in Singapore.
Gotcha.
And then,
So is that where the dry dock is?
well, so they stopped in Singapore
Okay.
and then they actually went to Sembawang.
Sembawang.
Yeah.
For the dry dock repairs.
Okay.
Um,
So is that like a specific area?
known for dry docks. Sembawang Shipyard.
Okay.
This place is huge, right? Thousands of workers.
Wow.
Rob mentions all these local guys who were like obsessed with football.
Really?
Yeah, they were always chatting up the British guys about the Premier League.
Huh. That's pretty cool. I mean, finding that common ground, you know,
Right.
in such a different environment.
Totally. Like, who would have thought that football would be the thing that connects them in a Singapore shipyard?
Yeah.
Rob also talks about the crazy heat and humidity,
Oh, yeah. I bet.
especially when the AC was off on the ship.
Oof. I could only imagine.
I don't know how he slept.
Yeah. That's definitely a side of travel that we don't always see, you know, the not so glamorous parts.
Right. It's not all fancy hotels and beautiful beaches. Sometimes it's just pure survival.
Exactly. And it's those moments that really test you.
For sure.
So speaking of testing limits, let's move on to Rob's nights out in Singapore.
Oh, yeah. Things got interesting.
I bet.
So there's this bar he mentions, kind of a dive tucked away in this like super modern shopping center,
Okay, a hidden gem.
right?
Yeah.
Cheap beer, lively atmosphere,
It's fun.
until he needed to use the toilet.
Oh.
And guess what? They were locked.
No way, seriously.
Yeah, apparently that's like a thing in some places.
Huh. That's a new one for me.
So what did Rob do? He used a fire bucket.
Oh, no, you're kidding?
Nope. True story. Not his finest moment. But hey,
Yeah.
you got to do what you got to do, right?
Guess so. Resourcefulness at its finest.
Or maybe just desperation.
Maybe a bit of both.
Anyway,
Yeah.
that same adventurous spirit led Rob and his colleagues across the border to Johor Bahru in Malaysia.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, they were looking for cheaper prices and good food.
Yeah.
You know, the classic traveler's motivation.
Makes sense. I mean, who doesn't love a good deal and some tasty eats?
Exactly. And it's a chance to experience a whole other culture just a short trip away.
Absolutely. It's all about expanding those horizons, right?
Totally.
So did they find what they were looking for in Johor Bahru?
From what I gathered, yeah, they had a blast. Cheaper drinks, great food.
Um,
Speaking of food, Rob tells this funny story about struggling with chopsticks in Hong Kong.
Oh, I can relate to that.
He was at this restaurant and just couldn't get the hang of it.
Been there.
So they ended up giving him a small spoon.
Uh-huh. Eating like a little kid.
Right, it's those moments where you just have to embrace the awkwardness.
For sure, it's all part of the experience.
Definitely. Okay, back to Hong Kong.
Yeah.
There's this story about Rob and his supervisor filling out their timesheets.
Oh, this sounds promising.
Let's just say they got a little creative with the hours.
I've heard of that happening.
Yeah, they were definitely pushing the boundaries a bit.
Well, it sounds like they had a good system going.
They did, and it kind of shows that bond they had.
Ah,
But the best part, his friend Pete is right there with them. And Pete just looks at them and says, "You can't put that down. There aren't that many hours in a week."
uh-huh. Oh, man. Classic Pete.
Okay, last story. This one's a doozy.
Okay. I'm intrigued. Lay it on me.
Rob's on the flight home, right?
Okay.
Aisle seat lady in the window seat. Middle seat's empty.
All right.
She asks if she can put her legs up,
Okay.
and then he realizes she's a midget.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, his words, not mine.
That's quite the unexpected travel companion.
Definitely not what he was expecting.
I bet it goes to show that you never know who you're going to meet when you're traveling.
That's for sure.
Thanks for joining us on Beyond the Engine Room. If you enjoyed this episode, share it with others who might find it fascinating. See you next time on the Open Seas.